Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room. I'm here tonight, joined by Dan, Spencer, and Kings to discuss the fixture that we're going to play. Oh, not us, but Liverpool's going to play tomorrow at St. Mary's, away at Southampton. Thanks so much for everyone helping on. Thanks for everyone tuning in tonight. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and if you're over on X, make sure to hop on over to YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, of course. Leave your thoughts as well in the comments. We'd love to hear from you as well. Before getting into all of the topics that we're going to have, I'm just going to ask the lads, how's your evening? Kings, how are you tonight?
Yeah, good. Thanks. It's good to be back on. Actually, it's unfortunately I had to come back from a holiday. Not unfortunately being on here, but just unfortunately back to the cooler weather. But yeah, it's good to be back. So yeah, nice to see everyone again.
And mentioning warm weather, Spencer, how are you?
I'm great. Yeah, I think the combined temperature of everywhere that all three of you are is not even half of where I am here in Florida. So could not be doing better, to be honest.
Yeah, thanks, Spencer.
All right. Well, then, how about you?
Can't complain. There's actually some sun out today, but it's going to be raining and snowing for the next couple of days. So I'm just enjoying the nice sun while it's still out.
Fair enough. Nice talking about the weather to begin a stream with. I don't think we've done that before, but Merry Christmas. Yeah, Happy Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating, of course. It's going to be a pretty busy Christmas once again for Liverpool. Obviously tomorrow we have the Carabao Cup fixture, but then again, since I think from Sunday onwards, we're going to play 3 games in 7 days. So that's another thing that we're going to visit a bit later on. But before getting into the matter at hand, what I want to discuss is the eventful weekend that we've had. So many things to chat about. I honestly don't even know where to begin. First, one thing that I wanted to say is I'm still absolutely shocked by the standard of officiating in the Prem. We've kind of maybe not thought about as much in the last few weeks because we haven't been experiencing it firsthand. But then again, some of the decisions that were made on that at Anfield on Saturday were just shocking once again. And I can understand the Robo red card, but then Diop's foul and then Pereira's one as well. There's two red cards. They're so obvious. There were so many similar instances in which those were given in the past few months, seasons even in the Prem, and then the season happening and then just not get any sort of punishment, maybe outside of a yellow. Well, it's just shocking once again, and it's kind of made me think about the role that the officials are going to play in this title charge that we are going to get into. But leaving that aside, what I wanted to ask Kings for your thoughts on the game at Saturday. It was obviously better than what we were thinking it was going to be in around the 20th minute.
I think the problem is with the Premier League and the so-called bigger teams. There's always a perception amongst all fans, I suppose, that they should be easy games. So people who are near the foot of the table, like Wolves, etc., at the moment, or the teams like Fulham, who are so-called smaller sides, it's going to be an easy game. You expect, especially at home, you're going to go to Anfield and you just be like, nah, we're going to get rolled over. We'll get the 3 points. And as has been proved quite often, Notts Forest, obviously earlier in the season, now Fulham this time. If you draw away at Arsenal, you think to yourself, well, that's a good result. Drawing at home to Fulham isn't seen as a good result. But considering twice we were behind in the game, ultimately you've got to say, okay, we got a point at least. It's better than nothing. It was one of them games that both the goals. The first one, I'm thinking that we shouldn't be getting that really. The way it kind of like stuck his leg out, it was very good for him, and he took a chance and it worked. But really the goal, I think, could have been prevented. And even their second one, okay, he tried and he just caught, I think, Gomez on the foot, and just like it rolled into the goal. Bit of bad luck with that one. But overall, I think people maybe sometimes underestimate some teams that come to Anfield. And as for the officiating, you said, the problem is the age-old thing with that is as well, if you watch your side on the TV or go to the game and you go to the pub or talk to your mates afterwards, there's always been talking points of, was this a penalty? Is that a red card? Is this a goal, not a goal, etc. offside? And with the introduction of VAR, everybody thought, well, this is going to rule out a lot of it. And it doesn't. The controversy now isn't, was it offside, is how good is VAR? Because they get things wrong as well. So they've changed what you talk about after the game to the point, how good's the officiating? They should have picked up on this, they should have done that and looked at it and called it back, etc. So the whole thing altogether on the weekend just made for a game that the decisions could have been better. One, possibly two of the goals could have been prevented. Ultimately, we got a draw. Like I say, it's better than getting no points at home like we did against Forest. But yeah, moving forward, basically the school report says must be better.
Yeah, and that's what's shocking, isn't it? I think Robo made a similar point last season when talking about VAR. Is when you thought when VAR was introduced that we were going to get, this system is going to just erase any sort of mistakes that refs end up making, and in the end, it wasn't the case. And it's some may argue it's even worse because now you're kind of expecting whoever's in the VAR and whoever was on there on Saturday to pick up on those tackles and to just at least have the ref come over at the sidelines and take a look at him. But obviously did not happen. Very quick to show the red card though to Robbo when that occurred in the 17th 16th minute, whatever. But yeah, it is what it is. The interesting thing, Spencer, that I ended up thinking on Saturday was, I think in a very odd way, this 2-2 draw makes me a bit more confident in this team, even because I'm thinking, even with one man down, even with Robo being sent off, even being down 2 times, we still were playing offensive football. Slot was making offensive changes. We ended up almost winning the game there at the end as well. It looks like there's so much passion and so much fight in this side that it feels like we're reliving that spirit that brought us the title in 2020.
Yeah. I think I saw that we doubled their XG even after the red card, which it's one thing to, be ahead on the match to have a higher XG, but to have done so in like a doubling fashion, that shows the quality of the performance that we put in. It was, I think, kind of unfortunate, especially that second goal. Like it just like a weird bobble, a weird bounce, like kind of a weird play to even get to the byline. That's just kind of the margin for error though. When you're playing, like King said, none of these teams there are no easy teams. There's no easy games in the Premier League. That's just the kind of margins that you're working with when you play a team that's full of very good professionals. I think probably the biggest positive that I took away from this was, I mean, you feel like it's a positive every time we talk about Liverpool, but Ryan Gravenberch is he may be the best player in the side. I mean, most valuable at this point, I think, the most irreplaceable. I mean, covering in at defense, he's incredible. I don't know what it was that wasn't working under Klopp. I don't know if he was potentially misprofiled. I don't know if he just didn't respond well to the way that Klopp operated, and Slot has gotten the most out of it. I don't know what exactly it is, but he's just a completely different player, and I'm very, very bullish on him continuing this type of performance. Also, it was really good to see Jota coming off the bench. That goal scoring, he's just a born goal scorer. Like to have turned the center back that way and then find the finish back across the keeper, wrong footing the keeper, like an open play. That's just so clinical, and it's really good to have that back for as long as he's fit. Hopefully, the knock that he has now isn't too long. But just one other thing, picking up on what King said, VAR, the issue with refereeing in the first place was humans make errors, and VAR is still humans. So humans with more time doesn't mean less errors. It just means still more errors, because the problem is still humans make errors. So it is what it is at this point. I've come to accept it. But yeah, no, I have the same distrust in VAR as I do in on-field referee.
It's just, at least my thinking was, okay, well, you are human, but you're going to get all these different replays. You're sitting in front of a screen, you're literally seeing the tackle unfold in front of your eyes. But that's still not reason enough for you to intervene. Like that for me is just, and it started now that we've had the whole Could episode. It's almost like you're starting to wonder, are these human mistakes that just happen? It's like, I don't know. For me, it was, I was always on that side of things where I'm not gonna create any sort of narratives or conspiracies or stuff like that about, what's happening. But that Could episode, I don't know, kind of made me a bit more cautious in that regard. Then I want to hear your thoughts on the game as well. And one other thing is actually a topic that I wanted to introduce as the next one, but seems like Paul has already asked it in the chat, and then I'd like you to answer as well. So you're gonna have two in one now. What exactly happened to Trent in that game? Is it a fair assumption to say that he might be affected by the whole drama that's in the media regarding his potential move to Madrid?
There we go. I mean, I think it's easy to fall back on that. I think it's difficult to judge Trent's performance for a number of reasons. One, we have to remember he has been coming back from injury, and up until the Madrid game when Bradley got injured, he hadn't really been playing much. So I think it's Trent trying to manage himself through the game. I think that because we're still attacking, Trent's trying to not expend all his energy tracking back, and he's trying to be creative. But this is kind of the problem with Trent, is that if you're not getting that creative aspect, and we really haven't been getting it that much, even though he has been, I still think he's been absolutely fine for most of this season, both attacking and defending. I think in that Fulham game, you kind of see the downsides to that as well, up until the fact that people thought that we should just steal Anthony Robinson from Fulham off that bus, who, again, I like Anthony Robinson. No one should be buying Anthony Robinson for their team. That's like a Tottenham buying. That's someone from Tottenham buying that the left back in order to go from being 8th to 8th. Like, I like Anthony Robinson. I think people have gotten into their minds this year that even though I do agree we do need a new left back going forward, just because I think Robinson's just needs someone to replace him, and Tsimikas, I think, is just not good enough long term. As much as I like both left backs as they currently are, that's obviously something we need to address. I think people have gotten into their minds that, one, Trent is off to Madrid, and so every performance is looked through that lens. And I didn't see it that way. I just saw someone trying to manage their way in a situation, but also completely misreading tactically when to be passive and when to be switched on. And I think that's something that obviously Slot and Trent will hear about, I imagine, in the locker room as well. I do think we were unlucky in many ways. I mean, the Muniz, I can't say his name. No, say Muniz goal is very unlucky because it bobbles off Gomez and goes in. If Gomez doesn't get a touch on it, it probably rolls past who was on Smith Rowe. Probably goes past Smith Rowe. We get away with one. It's 2-1 or 3-1, or maybe Fulham score a goal and it's 2-2. I think that what we saw after that game is that after we went down to 10 men, no one really did anything stupid. And that's a good thing as well, that even when Liverpool are in a tough situation, and even though the red card for Robinson was, I've read different things. Del Johnson for ESPN thought it wasn't a red card. I think most people in the chat thought it was a red card, though some of that's anti-Robinson bias, I think. I think it was a bit harsh, but also that was just kind of the game where none of the breaks went Liverpool's way. 2 high challenges that could have been reds were not given reds. Robinson getting sent off and us not being able to get a third goal, even though I think that, we probably deserved a third goal. We just weren't able to create one. That situation, like, just those, there were so many times in the box where Diaz had the ball or Salah had the ball and no one was shooting, and people were making the wrong decision. And it was just that type of game for the most part. I do think that we're seeing a pattern, and I think we're going to see this for the rest of the season, where a lot of teams now, I think Newcastle and Fulham have shown this, that teams that have pace out wide, or teams that have some sort of dynamic runners, like your Iwobi's, Pereira's, and Wilson's, even though I don't think Pereira and Wilson are that good, they'll run and they're technically okay. If Pereira's goal was a good example of someone that is technically good, like 1 out of 5 games, just getting his foot up and getting the ball off Robinson for the goal. I think what we're going to see a lot of going forward is that we're going to see a lot of teams take the first 15 to 20 minutes to try and hit Liverpool and try to get that goal. And it's something we saw at the beginning of the season with Ipswich and a couple other games, but we were able to ride it out and win the game 2-0 or 3-0. And I think that what we're going to see going forward is that idea. My father is watching now. Hey, Dad, how are you? I know he's excited to see me tomorrow. What we're going to see more of is teams just be aggressive for the first 20 to 25. And I think Liverpool are going to have to learn how to deal with that. And I think for the past 2 games, they haven't dealt with it well. They try to play their way into the game a bit too much. And I think we're probably going to see some changes from Slot where Liverpool are just more direct for 20 or 25 minutes, or we're playing for territory and not trying to get into the game a bit more. So that's pretty much sums it up, up to this point, what my thoughts are on the Fulham game. And obviously we have Southampton with the new manager. Who is the new manager of Southampton, Mihai? Do you know? It's not Russell Martin. He got sacked.
I literally do not know. If anyone in the chat does, or yeah, it's the way that it is. I'm actually going to check that and right in a second. But yeah, so with that, there's a lot to unpack. So basically, I do see how every bad trend performance is going to be seen through that lens. Of him maybe thinking about Madrid or something like that. It's just. And at times I was seeing the trend in the, I think what was it, 2022 to 23 season, when he was lazy. Basically, I remember the Napoli game where I was just fuming in front of the TV. So yeah, you can argue with him. He does have those moments where he just seems like completely uninterested in the game, but then yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one with him, I guess. And regarding the Robinson one, yeah, I do agree. See, Robinson's a good left back. I do think he's good. I do think he would potentially maybe fit us, but then he would need replacing again in 2-3 years. So for me, that's a no. Mainly for that reason. Good evening, Dan's dad. Good to have you here with us. Good to have so many Underwoods here at LFC Transfer Room. It's always a pleasure. We've already seen Dan's cat as well, and Dan's wife, I think, is all on stream. So maybe soon enough, we're gonna have an Underwood family reunion live on stream. Not gonna happen. Okay. Well, I tried it. So yeah, John, we are going to get into that a bit later, so make sure to stick around for that. That's another topic that I had in mind a bit later on. So yeah, Spencer, difficult to kind of have an opinion on regarding Trent at the moment. I honestly do think he'll stay in the end. I don't see him leaving. All of the messages, all of the way he still talks, in interviews and stuff like that, I just don't think he'll leave. He'll probably end up saying, but some of the performances haven't really been, well, let's say, to his standards at least. And if you want to touch on the Robinson thing, I've seen you maybe you disagree there with Dan. So if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah. So on the Trent thing, I mean, you could see the background. My feelings on whether I'd like him to stay or not. I think he's just such a unique talent. He does the threat that he provides from the wide part of the right side is unique to anybody in the world, and that's valuable. Just the fact that it's so good and so unique is why he's so valuable to me. Also, a game state where we're down a man is not probably going to be his best performance. It's not really conducive to where he would be his best. So I've been disappointed he didn't have his best game, but it's not entirely shocking. And in terms of like the kind of string, I wouldn't say it's like a string of bad games, but he has been down a little bit, at least to the level we expect. I mean, these are humans, like they have up and downs. You and I perform better or worse at work some days, depending on whatever's going on. I don't think it's a testament or an indication of a drop in level or that he was ever not at an elite level. It's just he's going through a bit of a rough patch. That's all. I expect him to rebound. Anthony Robinson, yeah. I mean, Dan's from the U.S., so he can at least say there's no American bias with Anthony Robinson, but he's so physical. He's so fast. He has a great ball in from the left. I don't like, if not him, what level of left back are we thinking to bring in? Maybe I think he's better than he is, but to me, he fits like the criteria of what we would want from like a profile. I think he does like a lot of the stuff that, younger Robertson would do in terms of energy levels and physical presence. He doesn't quite have like the set piece or like a free kick ability that Robertson does, but that's not something that we really need with the other players we have in the squad. I don't know. I think he'd be a great ad. I think he showed the best of himself against us. And I agree with everyone that says we should have stolen him off the bus. I would have been first in line to commit the crime to do that if I could have.
So my only pushback against that is that I completely agree that I think Anthony Robinson is, if we had bought Anthony Robinson 3 or 4 years ago and he was our backup left back, I think we'd all be crying out for him to play more games. I like Jedi. Again, this is not me. I even last year in January, you can go back and watch the videos and watch the tapes. I was saying that if we were selling Simicast, sell Simicast and bring Robinson in for 20, that's a good bargain, because I liked Robinson as a transitional left back to either a Beck or a Chambers. This is before Klopp said he was leaving, or potentially going and buying a bigger left back. In terms of profile, I get what you mean, Spencer. For me, it's just that he's too old. He's 28. So if you're buying a 20-year-old left back, you probably want the best in the world. He's not. If you look at all the players we've bought over the age of 26 or 27, it's, your Van Dijks. I think Allison may have been 25 or 26 at the time. Thiago Alcantara specifically is more recent, comes to memory. These are guys that are like at the top of their pinnacle or their peak. And I like Robinson. I do. I just think people watch him and are immediately, because they see Andy Robertson every day, they're like, we need that guy. He's fast. He has pace and Robinson doesn't. And I would much rather like to see Beck or Chambers, or buy a Kirkez or buy Gutierrez from Girona, or go for a Hincape, someone who's kind of a mix of a left back or a left center back or something along those lines, than spend the money for Anthony Robinson from Fulham. But that's just my opinion. And again, like, if they stole him from the bus and left Fulham a tenner with a couple of shillings, I'm all for it. If that got us through the month of January, I'd be fine with it. But realistically, I think there are better options out there, including options in our youth system.
Yeah, please don't say that 28 is too old now. That's how old I am, and I'm pretty sure you're not too much older than me.
For a professional starting left back, at Liverpool, in which you're going to spend over 30 million, I think that might be just a little bit too old, in my opinion. We're not going back to the Jonas Hector days. I just mean in the sense of, like, if you want a starting left back to succeed Robertson, I don't think Robinson Jedi. I don't think Jedi has many more years at top level football. Again, he could be great for another team, a United, a Chelsea, a Tottenham, anybody that needs a left back. And I think United should buy him because they need a left back that's not Diego Dallo. Like, I think he'd be fine there, but 40, 50 million, I don't see Liverpool doing that, in my opinion.
Well, what's also interesting, because you can kind of think about it in another way. I feel like in today's football and modern football, the prime of a player is now around, like, let's say 28 to 32, even. Like, I feel like in 20 years ago, you'd have a peak between 25 and 30, and now you can, look at someone like Van Dijk, for example. And not only him, Mo Salah in our team as well. It's like most players get in their prime a bit later than they used to, that other players used to in the past. Sorry. I have so many mixed feelings about Nuri, so I'm not really sure about him. But that's probably a conversation for another time. Kings, we know that in terms of creativity, we probably have at right back, we have Trent, who's up there with KDB in terms of creativity and numbers, even chances created and assists in the past 2 seasons. But at times, he kind of gets you fuming, right, in with his attitude.
Oh, he does seem a bit up and down. And I know we've just talked about it, and Dan was saying, well, it maybe hasn't affected him. I'm not sure. He's got this idea. The thing is, we're saying, is he dropping off? If he was dropping off and we thought he's not going to be any good, then I don't think Madrid would be after him. So it's a temporary thing at the end of the day. And all players go through that. Is things playing on his mind being the local lad as well? If he wasn't necessarily a local lad, he probably wouldn't feel the pressure about staying or going as much, I believe. But because he is, and a lot of people since Gerrard has left have put things like that on his shoulders, him and Curtis, and they're kind of like, well, we have local lads who've come through the youth, etc. I think he feels a bit of pressure from that. I'm the opposite to you, Mihai. I think he will leave. I go back in my head and I replay things similar because I'm old, not like Spencer and Dan, that when Michael Owen was saying all the right things, I want to stay at Liverpool, I want to be at Liverpool, etc., etc., and then just disappears on a free to Madrid. And I just see that playing out the same. The other two I do think will commit. And can we get a world-class right back in? Yes, we can, to replace him. They may be. I do look at Conor Bradley. I know it's been said in the comments as well. Conor Bradley, whether he's the perfect answer, I don't know. But I've watched him live and I've watched him on the TV, and I actually think he's a really good player. And he'll mature more if he's going to play week in, week out all the time. Whether he's the answer permanent, I don't know. I just got the feeling that Trent is going to move on. While he's at Liverpool, he is going to have ups and downs because all players go through that. But he is a good player. It's just sometimes we expect more of him, maybe because we've seen that he can do it, and in that particular game, or the next couple of games, he might not do it, and we get on his back a little bit because we know he can do it, but it just doesn't quite happen in some games. But yeah, he'll come back to his best, whether he's playing in red or whether he goes to play in white. I know Dan doesn't agree.
I think he was referring to the
Alphonso Davies, yeah, someone recommending.
Oh, that's
Alphonso
okay.
Davies.
Okay.
No. I take your point, Kings, at all. I think for me, the reason why I don't think it might be affecting him. We're just assuming he's human, and of course, he's probably thinking about it. I don't think that's what's dictating his performances on the pitch. I think it's Trent trying to do Trent things in a game, which is what he's done for a long time, and it's just now because of that media focus that we're all hyper focusing on him as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I don't think there's a world-class right back like Trent out there on the market, which is why I think that if he does go and Bradley's your right back, which I'm assuming is what I think we'd be fine with that. I think you just have to look to create somewhere else within the team.
Yeah, sorry, Dan, for cutting you up. I will clarify what I mean is, yes, there is world-class players out there. Would Liverpool go out and buy them? Probably not. They would look for a player. Unfortunately, we have to say it, a bit like Mo Salah. He come into the Premier League with a reputation of he's not maybe going to cut it as well because he didn't do it at Chelsea. And they've made him or helped make him into a world-class player. And I think they will do that. They will get a player in who's got a lot of potential and hopefully become world-class. And at the same time, we get the fantastic player as he's developing, I suppose. But it wouldn't go out and spend 60, 70 million on a right back. They're not going to do that, I don't think so. But yeah, so sorry, I'll clarify that bit.
Yeah, so it's we're in a position now where you can make a case for so many players in our current 11 to be part of an all-time Liverpool 11. So it's kind of difficult to see them or to think about him leaving. Obviously, it's been the talk with him, Salah, and Van Dijk in the past few months. Well, hopefully we're going to get more news on that. I still have two saved comments that I want to talk about, but I think we should get into the stream's main topic that we were getting ready to discuss at the beginning, which is the Southampton fixture tomorrow. For me, Carabao Cup, I can finally relax for a bit because I'm not as stressed as I would be during a Prem game where you feel like I still feel like you have that feeling of, even though it's not the case anymore, but you almost have that feeling like you drop points and it's the end of the world because you have all that Man City trauma from the past few seasons. But this season is different. Obviously, we've seen it happen at the weekend, even when Arsenal drop points as well. Chelsea could go top before we actually do play against Spurs, but that's another conversation with 2 games in hand, of course. That's another conversation. For me, tomorrow having a Carabao Cup game is a bit more relaxing. It's maybe a bit of an opportunity to see different players play, although Spencer, will we see that many different players play? Because with having looked at that in the past few weeks, I kept on thinking, okay, that's where Chiesa comes in. He's gonna be fresh after injury. He can maybe start that game. But now looking at it, I don't see him start. And I probably think that we can give well, we'll obviously have to give Jota the day off tomorrow. We'll probably get to see Nunez again in a game where we know that he might take some advantage of of all the spaces that he might get, because that's a game that he would kind of enjoy. So in short, your thoughts on tomorrow's game?
I certainly hope we get to see some players that we don't usually get to see. I just don't see how it's realistic to go in. I think we have 3 and 7 after this, or something where it's really condensed. That's just not feasible unless we're going to rotate in those games, which I feel are more important. So we shouldn't be. I'd be excited. I mean, not like maybe excited isn't the right word, but I'm intrigued to see. I think we're going to see Tyler Morton and Endo at the base of the midfield. I'm kind of interested to see what that's like, because at some point we may suffer an injury to some of our other midfielders. Can either of them do a job in like a bigger stage in the Champions League or in the Premier League if they're called upon? That would be something that's interesting to me. I do think we are going to see Chiesa. I don't know if he's starting, but I think he is going to get at least 45 minutes. He's probably going to come on at half if he doesn't start. I'm very intrigued to see that. To me, he seems like he's Bigfoot. Like I know that he exists, or people say that he exists, but I'm not exactly sure if he does exist. So I'd be excited to see him. And then, yeah, the other one for me is it's going to be the back line. Are we finally going to give that any rotation? I don't know who we'd rotate into, because we have to make Joe Gomez. He's going to have to play left back, I think. If Tsimikas, I don't think he's going to be fit yet. So a lot of questions at the back. The midfield, I'm cautiously optimistic to see get a chance. And then, yeah, Chiesa, let's see it. Let's see if what we bought is for real. If not now in a game like this, at least show some kind of creativity, some kind of spark. If he does, then I'll be optimistic for what he can offer for the rest of the year.
You see, I made the mistake of thinking the Southampton fixture in the Prem was going to be a comfortable win. But as King said in the beginning, there's no comfortable games in the Prem. Honestly, I'd expect him, it's always the new manager bounce. I'd expect him to be, let's say, up for it, but I don't know if that's enough for them now. I would love to see Endo start a game, honestly, because I think he's done so well in the last season, and now obviously he didn't get that much time. Obviously, Elliott could start as well, and I mean, he probably will. It's going to be interesting because we're going to see Kwanzaa probably again, and we know he hasn't had like the best of seasons up until now, but we know the quality that he has, and obviously, that's again, I think someone who needs to get some trust, some confidence. The left back position is going to be interesting. Yeah, I don't really know who outside of Gomez would play there tomorrow. Have a good evening, Dan said. Hopefully, yeah, the match will be on when we get here. Okay. Is it you're all gonna meet up tomorrow? Today, sorry, is that it? I'm sorry.
No. I'm traveling home tomorrow, so that's why he's saying that, because I think the game is. What time is the game tomorrow, Spencer? Do you know? Actually, Tampa's on Central Time, isn't it?
No, I'm on Eastern.
Okay.
3. Game's on
3, yeah. So it'll be on by the time I get home. Yeah, no, I mean, so back to what you said, Spencer. So looking at the team, what we played against West Ham, which is the last time we had a Carabao Cup game when we had congested fixture schedule. Endo started, Jones started, Chiesa, Jota, Gakpo, Nunez. I expect probably Nunez will start this one, especially since Jota seems like he's probably not going to go he's not going to play tomorrow based on what Slot has said. So I imagine they will keep him at Liverpool until we play Spurs. I also I hope Norris comes in, because we don't know how fit left back and Robertson suspended. I think Tsimikas is back in training, so he might be on the bench. But again, we just don't know. I expect Kwanzaa and Gomez to both play. Right back, I don't think Bradley's back, so I imagine Trent will play. And I could see Chiesa and potentially Harvey Elliott also coming in, because I imagine that Slot's probably going to want either Jones or Harvey to play. I don't expect him to play Endo and Morton together, because he's only played one or the other. But either way he does it, I expect that you're going to see some Jones, some Harvey, potentially some Szoboszlai. I know Darwin's at least going to do 60, potentially with Mo Salah coming on later or another player coming on later. But that's kind of what I would expect to see. And I don't know if he'll put Kelleher in goal. I mean, he probably will because Allison's fit now, and he probably doesn't want him to get injured in a Carabao Cup game. But yeah, we'll see. I could also see him playing Gakpo because Gakpo's like he just scores in this competition all the time. So there's just so many things he can do. I think the most important thing is that Gravenberch gets a rest, Van Dijk gets a rest, and potentially Musala gets a rest at least for 60 minutes. Because they're going to be the three. If you can keep those three players fit, as long with Allison, that spine of your team, I think we'll beat Tottenham, Leicester, and West Ham. I think as long as we get those 3 wins going into the new year, I think that's a solid December, and I think that's a solid first half of the season.
Yeah, to me, honestly, it's I'm more wishing not to lose any players to injury tomorrow, and that's kind of all that I care about. Winning is obviously, with the Carabao Cup, I think you only care about it if you're like in the semifinals, and that's kind of the way that the moment you start caring about it. Outside of that, it's obviously not a competition that we're, let's say, too focused about, but to focus on. But we've seen in the past few seasons that now we finally have a bit of team depth to kind of go far into these competitions and win it, of course, as we did in the past few seasons, 2 seasons, I think. Kings, do we go with that? Well, I've seen an interesting comment here in the chat as well, but now, of course, I can't find it. Well, it was mentioning Spurs, and they're going to play United on Thursday as well, which yeah, there it is. Which obviously is going to be interesting because Spurs, we know I think they only have, I don't know, I'm not really up to date with their injuries, but I think Dragushin is pretty much the only center back that they have, the only healthy center back that they have at the moment, which is going to be interesting because he's gonna have to play obviously on Thursday and then at the weekend too. So there's an interesting backline to exploit at the weekend. But until then, thoughts on tomorrow?
You talking about Dragusin, the best center back in the world there, Mihai, Romanian pride.
Yeah, of course. He's actually been doing well, but I wouldn't mind to see his worst performance on Sunday.
I do think that there will be much change obviously tomorrow because it's the quarterfinals. As you say, nobody really takes much interest until you get to the semi, and then probably hopefully get to the final. The names bandied around that I've seen in the chat and the guys have said on here, pretty much where I'd be with them. I didn't realise that Andy Robertson only misses 1 game for this straight red card. I hadn't even clicked on that one. It's the new rules because it wasn't serious foul play, etc. So that's good that he only misses this, and the schedule is quite lucky that we've got this in between the next league game. So that's great. But yeah, the names that I've seen on here, I think Endo will play, Jones and Elliott will play, and Nunes, Chiesa will play. I think it's what you expect. Kelleher's going to come in, and I mean he's proven anyway this season he's a very good deputy, and I know he's going to leave in the summer. We all can see it coming because he wants first team football, which you can expect. But he's a very good goalkeeper to have in. Do I think we'd have too much for Southampton? Well, as we said, you'd like to think so, even with a so-called like second string. I do see us getting through. I mean, really, on the weekend, the game against Fulham, even with 10 men, should they have taken the 3 points? Yes, probably. They had their chances. I know Fulham had extra chances as well, obviously, but I think they could have won at the weekend, and I think they will win tomorrow. It's just a case of making sure that you only play the lads you need to play and don't risk anybody extra. I've seen in the chat there, obviously Salah and Virgil maybe should just stay in Liverpool and not even travel. Now, he's probably not going to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if he names them on the bench just in case he thinks he needs them. But yeah, I think hopefully, I'll commit to it and say I think we'll win tomorrow, but it will be a much changed side and just get through and then concentrate on the league games coming out, like I say, with Spurs and their shoddy defence at the moment.
Yeah, and obviously talking about the weekend. As Spencer said, we are going to play 3 games in the next 7, from this Sunday to the next. So obviously, we're gonna need to pretty much rotate because, especially at left back, I think you're gonna need fresh legs come the next week. Okay, with that in mind, I'm gonna take the 2 questions that I've saved here. One interesting question that I wanted us to take a look at, was this one from Paul. He asked, I think, at the beginning of the stream, about selling Diogo Jota, which for me is a very, very complicated conversation to have because is is he the best finisher in the Liverpool squad? I may be thinking between him and Mo Salah, but I would just give it to him. I think. I don't know, or maybe not. Anyways, he's in the top 2 finishers in that squad, in the Liverpool squad. When you need a goal, you know that you can pretty much rely on him. Maybe outside of the Palace game last season, and it's just, for me, even if you have problems in terms of injuries with Diogo Jota, it feels difficult to kind of commit and say that, yeah, we should sell him, because how exactly are we going to find, or who exactly are we going to get that's available at the right price as well, at the right age, and someone who can offer what he offers? I'm not really sure, especially now with us being able to play Diaz centrally now in recent months, and even and also Nunez. Dan, I know you're gonna have a field day with this one, so I'm gonna leave it over to you.
To the question of should we sell Jota? I mean, only if you're getting a decent price and your intention is already you're going to buy another forward. I think the issue with Jota is he does get injured. Though last year he got an impact injury and this year was also an impact injury. He hasn't really gotten that many muscle injuries recently, but because he's such a I would say an old school forward, and I think Kings will appreciate this in the sense that he's very much he bounces off people. He's a 5'10", about what, like 180, 1.8 meters. Like, and he's scrappy. He gets very technically not pristine goals. Like, no one would ever accuse Diogo Jota of being a great ball striker, but he has a way of just finishing, and he's just very good at it. It's very much the uncoachable thing of finishing, where he can just bobble. He can hit a ball and it just goes in the goal, and it's not pretty. It's actually very. And Kings, you saw you saw him play more than me, but it reminds me very much of like how Fowler used to score goals, how Owen used to score goals, and even going back to Ian Rush, how Rush would score goals, or even Aldridge. Not very clinically, like it's not Alan Shearer twatting a ball like 100 kilometers per hour, but it's very scrappy. It's very always in the corner, always in the net. It's not even Thierry Henry-esque. I think statistically, Mohamed Salah is our best finisher. Everyone just says it's Jota because he just seems to always score, even though there are so many times in his Liverpool career where he will go like 20 games without scoring a goal. Like, he'll give 20 assists, but no goals. He's very, very, very hot and cold as a player. Even Wolves will say that as well. Honestly, we don't know how bad the injury is. So I think people just have this perception that he's always injured and he always scores goals, and neither of which are true, which is always fun to deal with in terms of perception. I think Salah is our best finisher by far. I think on Saturday you have to start Nunez. Like, you're starting Darwin at Southampton, you start Darwin at Tottenham, at least for 60 minutes. And honestly, if you've watched this Liverpool team, Darwin Nunez plays best with Jota. And if Jota's not ready to go at Southampton, start him against Tottenham. If you can start Darwin, Jota, and Salah against Tottenham, you're going to score 5. I don't know who's going to score the 5. Darwin's going to have 6 go off the woodwork and 5 go in off Andre Gray's ass. But it doesn't really matter because they play so well together as a pair. It's very old school. I don't know who the two players were at Sunderland, but it's very old school. Big man runs in behind, smaller, scrappier, the old second striker position. So that's the long and short of it, in my opinion. I think that what Jota gives us, though, is that he just gives us something different. Like, he plays different than Gakpo, he plays different than Diaz, he's different than Nunez, he's different than Salah, he's different than Chiesa, and that's where his value lies, in that difference that he gives us, not necessarily in his finishing ability.
The thing that I well, I you know why I want to say Mo Salah is our best finisher by far, or in this conversation with Diogo Jota. I feel like the thing that I see how do you call them comparisons between him and Nunez, and I think you've put some in the chat as well, if I recall. The thing is with Jota, I feel like when he gets a good chance, you know that most of the time he's going to score it. He's going to take it. And there's games, even you could say he's kind of hot and cold, but maybe that's because so many times he just seems like a ghost. You don't really see him on the pitch that much until he gets it in the back of the net. And I feel like him, he offers a lot in terms of that. The thing with, which obviously I don't want to get into the whole Nunez debate again, but you can't really rely on Nunez the way you rely on Jota, I think. Which I wouldn't think that's necessarily, controversial statement. One thing that I wanted to get back to, because I forgot to say it, I just searched for it now. The under 21s manager Simon Rusk will be in charge of Southampton tomorrow, so that's going to be it. They're probably, from what I can read, they're going to get a manager from Sheffield Wednesday, Danny Rowe, but that's not of interest to us at the moment. So yeah, they're gonna have their under 21s manager tomorrow on the sidelines, and that's that. Holding on to a slim FPL lead, yes. Still. Can I make it 2 years in a row? I don't know. We're gonna have to get back to you on that in May. Hopefully, yes. Okay, Kings. I don't know about you, but for me, Jota is probably one of my favorite players at Liverpool, just because he always seems to show up when he's needed. Outside of that Palace game that I won't forget last season, where he basically missed 3 sitters in that game, which you don't see from him. But outside of that, I'm always thinking, if we're going to play a final and I can give a chance to fall to one of our players, I think it's going to be him.
It does say in the chat, actually, he's probably our most clinical finisher. Whether he's our best overall, I can't say yet off Stabby Live. He's such a good player. He's just hampered by injuries, and that is so unfortunate for him, because I think he would be more of a Liverpool legend if he just stayed free of injuries, because I think his goal ratio would be a lot higher if he was playing, instead of missing 20 games, if he played 20 games straight. I think his goal scoring exploits would be so much better. It's such a shame for him that injuries, again, now it seems like he's whether this has come about after the weekend, this particular problem he's got, is it because he wasn't fully fit anyway, and then says to the gaffer, yes, I want to play, and then now he's going to suffer for it, or whether it's just a reaction for not playing for such a long time, and maybe won't play tomorrow, or even if he did travel, we'll play 10, 15 minutes at the end, possibly. But if that's the case, keep him for the weekend instead of risking him at all tomorrow, if there's a chance he can play the weekend. As Dan said, if we can play Nunez with Jota on the field at the same time, I would put Nunez out onto the left, and I'd have Jota down the middle. I think Nunez, to be fair, plays really well when he does come in from the left-hand side, and he does cause problems. And then he can learn a few things off Jota and showing him how to actually put the ball in the net as well. And say, this is how you do it. But he's unfortunate with his injuries, like I say, and if he could stay fit, he'd be such a valuable player for Liverpool and for the team, over the last few years. It's just an unfortunate run of injuries that he's had. Whether he should stay beyond this season, of course, I can't make that decision. Do I want him to leave? The answer is no. I want him to have the rest of this season, build him back up, get to pre-season, have a really good summer, and then start afresh next season. And I don't want to write him off the second half of the season. So, sorry, I think my Alexa's going off chatting in the background. I just think that, if he can get the second half of the season and get up and running without injuries, then he will show that he can score goals at crucial times like he did at the weekend. It just needs to be a continuation, all through the second half of the season, not just odd games here and there.
Fair enough. And I would disagree with this one. It's like it's actually the first season where we do actually afford a slip up. I feel like I don't know if you're referring to the league necessarily, because I get it if you do, but it's like finally we can afford a slip up and not be immediately punished. I feel like in the league now, because we've seen Arsenal drop points as well, and City's a bit you know um, farther away at the moment. Chelsea, I'm not sure about still. They do have a great run, I think, in the next 6, 7 fixtures. They do have some great ones. They're basically playing Leicester, Ipswich, Palace, every side in the bottom 8, I think. But yeah, I don't know. We're gonna obviously reassess that a bit later. Now, John's comment that I wanted to also get back to. The thing with the interesting thing, I keep seeing stuff like should we prioritize a certain competition? I think it's difficult to kind of think about it now, or in general terms, because I feel like you should assess game by game and just look at it that way. Maybe you're gonna need, let's say, maybe you have this week you're going to have a big player like Trent, for example, who's going to come back after an injury. You could maybe start him this game, give him 50, 60 minutes, to get into shape, and then you kind of play your first choice right back, but it's not necessarily for the lack of rotation. I feel like it's very contextual, and I think it's difficult to kind of say that we should prioritize a competition over another, because it's just you can kind of take it game by game and see what you need at that moment in time. So yeah, he said Jota will get some minutes. Yeah, well, I would expect him to get like 25, 30 maybe towards the end, with Nunez coming off. And the conversation regarding that trio of Nunez, Jota, and Salah, I think it's very unfair to Cody Gakpo and to Luis Diaz, who both have been better than Nunez this season. Nah, they've been better than Nunez this season. So I know Dan, you want to defend him, but I think at this point we just gotta admit it. But yeah. Anyways, I think that's pretty much with that in mind. I think we're gonna finish end tonight's live stream. Sorry. Thanks very much to Dan, to Spencer, to Kings for helping on, and thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks for all the comments. We always love to hear from you. So make sure to always leave your comments down in the chat if you wish to, whenever you're here, because we do love to kind of get it and them integrated into these conversations and see what you think. Once again, thanks very much to everyone helping on. We are going to have a post-match live stream tomorrow as well. So outside of that, 7:30 p.m. UK time, outside of outside of match days, and yeah, thanks to everyone. Up the Reds.